Okay, recording in progress.
Okay.
So welcome once again, the beautiful, beautiful people. Thank you for this sunshine from your faces beaming into our rooms. It's so cool to see and to feel your hearts.
Yeah,
So
hope you have your amazing teas ready once again.
yeah, cheers. Let's raise
Cheers.
our cups. As always, David, I
Yeah.
love your cup.
You have a
You're
virtual
eating
cup.
your cup. Cool. That's also possible.
Oh, well, what a selection of cups.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
Mm.
I love this cup, Zane's cup with the sun just above. Amazing.
Like XXL. She compensates for Giacomo's non-cup.
Yes. Cool. Bucket. She's drinking from the bucket. So, are you guys ready for a little bit of the analyzing fairy tales and reframing them, busting some old stories? So, yeah. Today
Yeah,
we will talk about Cinderella and company. Cinderella, Snow White, Red Riding Hood, and
Cinderella and her sidekicks.
exactly. Even Pinocchio. Yeah, we had Pinocchio. Well, we are actually getting more and more magical. More of these episodes are about the fairy tales. What's going on? Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a little background for this topic and how it came about. And first, maybe Victoria, you can explain the galactic background.
Well,
That was
galactic background is really very interesting. It simply so happened that so many people are kind of contacting us at the same time, around this time, asking about, hey, Uwe,
Hey,
asking about some like guidance about their relationships. And it's really kind of coming unusually dense. It's gonna, in one day or within 2 days, we have something like 4 or 5 couples that are coming in with these questions that they want to either upgrade or, just separate. So what's going on? They're all in this similar situation. So we took the hint from the universe, and that's what we are going to be talking about. Because apparently this means that it's in a field, and this is a big question for a lot of people at this time. Yeah. So,
well, the field is big time because as we're following Graham, who is Galactic Astrologer in New Zealand. So what he kind of points out is that this is the moment, very rare moment where it's not just planets colliding, it's the whole two giant galaxies actually that are polar opposites coming together. Imagine like the size of galaxy, like the masculine and feminine energy, and they're coming together. So this is a moment of big check, where are you at with your own polarities, with your external polarities, because it's casting this field. If you have done your homework, it's pure bliss, you've resolved it. So this is what we call heroes gammas, the internal marriage of polarities, where you attain this kind of non-dual inner state while being able to function as a person in duality. But if not everything is cleared yet, then there are big red flags and flares and everything urging to look deeper. So what is it? And of course, the easiest place where we can see the state of our polarities is the relationship. The love relationship
or
is
close
actually
friendships.
designed for that. So that's where we are like firsthand control check of what's going on. But not only, it can be any kind of relationship.
Yeah, it's actually people that are very close to us with whom we have the most of the emotional bonds, because that's, the channel through which the messages come directly to our hearts. And with these people, it matters. With others, we don't care so much. But with these with whom we are so close, it actually matters what's going on. So they are able to stir what we have to see on the inside. So what we have kind of analyzed a long way is that a lot of our models on which we base our relationships and our friendships are based on the things and notions and stories that we have somehow absorbed in our childhood, early years, early experiences. And what are the earliest experiences then? Fairy tales that we have been told when we were kids, and we have not critically, we are not able to critically analyze them. We just absorb those stories, and that's how they are. And so we're gonna start with actually asking you guys about your favorite fairy tale. So what is one of the fairy tales that somehow stayed with you? It was so strongly ingrained that it somehow stayed with you ever since the childhood. And I can share what was mine. I was seriously traumatized by Hans Christian Andersen's fairy tale about the girl with the matches.
Me
I don't
too.
know if you remember that one.
Me too. Like forever worst trauma.
Oh my God. So it felt,
Story.
later on, it felt like they on purpose wrote this to traumatize kids. Like she was so poor, she had to beg for the money on the gutter. And then she was selling the matches, and she had her last match, one before last, and she turned it on, and she had this big feast that she saw in her hallucination. And the next morning they found her dead in the gutter. So it's like, what? My God, you guys, what? You're telling this to a kid? I was heartbroken. But anyway, that's just an illustration. We'd love to know, what is your fairy tale that you have carried all this time since childhood to now, if you have one. Yeah, anyone? What is your favorite fairy tale?
Hey, look who's there.
Ah, yeah, Jamie coming. Cool. So any of you have any fairy tales that you remember from childhood and that had some significance till now? Yes, Vanita.
And then Bella.
Mhm.
Actually, I don't think it's not a fairy tale. It's more of a mythology. Does that count?
Of course
Yes.
it does. It's the same thing.
Okay,
These
it
are
does.
all very
All right.
alchemical. Yeah, that's why we're talking about it.
Okay, so I used to love the whole idea of this Ramayana, because like as a dancer, I'm an Indian classical dancer, and so we always played that, and it's always this Rama is this perfect man, and Sita is the perfect woman, right? And then so like for years it's only like at the end it's there's like the usual hero's journey circle, and for those have, and then at the end they go back and rule the Ayodhya, they go back. So that's the usual story that we hear. And then later on, until I think I was university, and and I read that, and then at some point later I realized that there was a continuation for this story. And then one of it is that Rama decides that Sita, or not Rama, the people decides, because Rama is like the king, right? Earlier it was the prince, and then he was going to be coronated, and then all that drama happened, and then he was exiled, gone to the forest for 14 years, and then came back. And then when he was exiled, so when he came back, one of the situation is that he he was asked, or Sita was asked to jump into the fire. And if she made it, then she was going to be, Rama can accept her as the queen and all that stuff. If she died in the fire, then that means she was impure, because she was away for 1 year. Uh, she was kidnapped by Ravana. So, and then at that point, I was so pissed off. And I was thinking, how can that be? Completely shattered my whole idea of Rama. I was so pissed off, and I'm thinking, oh God, how can, but then also I do realize that a lot of the mythologies is also like a reflection of life, or it's like real life. It's not just like a fairy tale. It's identifying with what's going on in that life. But I was so upset with that whole thing. How dare he ask her to jump on the fire? Silly man. Suddenly all this idea about this perfect man and this perfect king and the perfect whatever just crumbled. So that's my story. That's my trauma.
Well,
So,
thank you, Vanita. What's wrong with these guys and burning women? It's in Hindu, it's in Catholic, in every big religion. There's something like that. What's going on? Perfect guy, and by the way, he also is gonna ask the woman to jump in a fire.
Yeah, that's indeed deceptive, because the perfect guy suddenly turns out to be just that jealous. That's it.
yeah. It's actually, he wanted to, the story is basically he had to make sure the people were happy and they are accepting of him, so he's like this perfect, not just a guy for the woman as a romantic thing, but also the perfect king and all that. And so it was like a bit of he was in dilemma, but yet he allowed that to happen. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, so that was the issue.
Yeah, of
Thank
course,
you.
these are allegories, but it so happens that actual people from the world are taking them literally. That's actually what Inquisition said. Well, we're going to burn them as witches. If they're not witches, the God will intervene and kind of have miraculous saving. Well, maybe they took it a little too literally. So yeah, thank you for sharing this. And actually, the great point from your sharing is that these are allegories and alchemical stories that actually mean much more than what's on the surface. So yeah, thanks so much, Juanita.
Thank you.
Bella wanted to go next, right?
Yes, I am definitely into all these like fairy tales, and Andersen was one of the. My dad read the whole book to me, and they were all dramatically just so upsetting, right? Stories of poverty and people just being butchered, like I don't know, just like the Bluebeard, right? I mean, there's so many horrible stories. Can you guys hear me? Is my internet okay?
We can.
My internet is unstable at the present. Yeah, okay. So, but one that just stuck to me is, I think now thinking about it kind of retrospectively, is the Little Mermaid, which is the most depressing one to me. I don't know, there's like the Soviet version of the cartoon as well, where, basically she has to give up everything to be with this guy, right? With the prince. So like she has to give her voice, she has to give her, like, she can't walk around anymore because her feet are hurting, and eventually she dies. So I mean, what's the moral of the story? You go after so for me, I don't know, like this whole like it's either love or you just have to give up everything, right? And then it's funny because then I moved from the Soviet to the US, and then in the Disney version of the Mermaid is like all happy ending, but it's still the same moral, right? Like you have to give everything up for to be accepted, right? Or to be in this like perfect princess prince type of relationship. So I mean, obviously, like, I know it's all a lie, but it gets stuck somewhere in your mind, and or somewhere else, I don't know where it gets stuck, but it's like, you live that whole dilemma. Like, am I supposed to be this perfect and well-behaved and following the rules type of person to deserve love? And as much as you try to unpack that and know it's like archetypal, it still comes back, even, you know, at this late age that I am already. It's like, that's, the stories keep haunting us, even though we know they're not, you know, they were just invented. And yeah, so I'm really curious what you guys have to, how do you help us unmantle this whole thing?
Yeah, beautiful. Another story that got intertwined with, you know, and at least makes part of our decisions for us. So yeah, great. Thank
Yeah, well, in this story, I agree with you, Bella, because before Disney had sanitized the story and made it like a happy ending, because it was really traumatizing, because the poor girl, she gives up everything, and well, her love is not accepted, not turned back, and then she just, you know, has to die and disappear in the foam. So injustice upon injustice, right? So the moral of the story, sacrifice doesn't pay.
Exactly.
Yeah, because she sacrificed everything she had to belong to the world where, like, you know, guy was just not interested. And so what, like, you know, she made wrong assumptions that by doing this or by doing that she'll be accepted, and she wasn't. So it does
Yeah.
leave
Yeah, and it's
fear.
exactly, and it's not even going back. Like, she couldn't go back.
No.
So it's not like, what is the moral?
you.
Yeah, well, the moral, definitely sacrifice doesn't pay. Yeah, so
It's interesting. Yeah, that's the whole
but you can't
category.
help love. So, you know, and then you end up with this stuck feeling,
Mhm.
like
Yeah, another story and beautiful cartoon to watch in that similar train of thought is The Song of the Sea. We have already suggested it on some of the teas. It's the same similar story where like higher world combines with lower world and like where you're gonna belong. It's really, really interesting. How about some of the rest of you? What are your favorite fairy tales? Something that stayed with you since childhood? Or it doesn't have to be, you know, traumatizing. I have just kind of shared like as a joke this one, so it can be in any way. Maybe you loved it, maybe it was amazing, maybe for some beautiful or this or that reason you are still remembering it. Yes, Anna.
Hi, everyone. Well, I was thinking for some time since the beginning of our talk. In fact, I don't remember something that was so strong for me in the early childhood, but somehow a little later, I was really touched by a story about Little Prince, you know, and I was thinking just now why. Maybe the whole atmosphere of him having his little world and trying to find out about the rest of the world, and just the way the story was told, the atmosphere of the story was so touching, and I felt it strongly, not still not sure why. But of course, the same thing at the end, he had to die. Which was, you know, so sad that I was crying every time. Why? So beautiful little creature, so pure, so beautiful. To After some exploring, when he wanted to come back home, he had to die in a horrible death, you know, and say goodbye to his friends, the fox, and everything. And yeah, the story with him dying was really, I don't know what could you say about that. It was touching for me, but I never thought a lot about why I was so attached to that story, why I loved so much Little Prince in all the languages, in English, in France, in Serbian, in French, in Serbian. It was so beautifully said, you know, the words and the sentences and the drawing, everything is really, really so beautiful. But I never thought about what was maybe some deeper meaning of everything and why it touched me so much.
Mhm.
Yeah, well, we are opening that question now, so you might reread and reanalyze, but at least what you are sharing now, you said it several times, that the most disturbing was the death of it. So this is going to be interesting to see, are we okay with the idea of dying, or we are kind of hoping that this is not necessary or whatever.
I'm not okay with the idea of little beautiful children dying.
Yeah, you know, like this story, of course, has touched millions of people across the world, and for a reason that actually he was not in a relationship, so that's also the sad thing. And actually, what that triggers in us is this beautiful, we have our world, and if only someone could see our world the way it is without trying to change it or bring, something different. So we all evolve in that kind of on our little planet, and then we start inviting, friends, and we're a little bit anxious at what they're going to say about our planet. So this is this stage where it's very cool to be in our own planet, but it's also very lonely. Yeah. So that's the pre-relationship stage.
Claudia.
Sorry, I don't know. Mine are a bit weird, and so please be open-minded. But Superman was for me, the fact that he could fly, and he had this power, and I was like, oh my God, it can't happen. And when I was little, I managed to get my father. I was kind of like the little tomboy. I was not a little girl for him. I was the boy he never had. And he got me a pair of running shoes with Superman on it. And these shoes would get me places, and I would run faster than anybody because Superman was me until I outgrew the shoes. But and but I don't know why, but simple things like cars, I thought that they drive themselves. I really did. Sorry, but it's never so dramatic for me. It's always little pieces and bits, and and like as a kid, I would read, I would go in an airplane, I would see, oh, life vest under your seat. And I was like, oh my God, the best thing is under, it's really, really, like really simple. I was just, and I would look, and people would tell me, what are you looking for? And the best thing of my life is under my seat. I was just but but I have to say the Little Red Riding Hood, I never got over it, because her grandma being eaten by the wolf was not understandable. And then the father comes with an axe and opens up the wolf and finds everybody in a whole piece. It's never worked for me. But anyway, it's just to say those things ever. Anyway, here goes.
Oh, good.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Claudia.
Yeah.
It makes sense. Just picking the superpowers from different fairy tales and kind of loading them on. That's super cool. Yeah.
And by the way, Little Red Hood, the original version, there's no grandma. There's just she goes through the forest to the grandma, and gets the wrong infos from the wolf, and who uses her naivety and just eats her alive. That's it. So the grandma and opening it was supposed to be a better ending. Yeah. Apparently for you it was not a better ending, but in the original version she's just eaten. Too bad for you, you were too naive. So that's the moral of the story for Little Red Hood. And that goes for almost every, especially the Andersen fairy tales, that they had horrible endings, and those happy forever after were added to, maybe after generational traumas, they were added on the top while transcribing. And I remember one of the stories that I used to like about, you know, the girl with long hair that's locked in a tower. It was, you know, it always starts with,
Goldilocks. Yeah,
yeah,
Goldilocks.
the Goldilocks. No, Goldilocks was with the bears, but that
Ah,
Rapunzel.
okay.
And, you know, it always starts, you know, the couple
Rapunzel.
have children. So there is some kind of dramatic background already. Like the beginning is weird. And then, you know, she has this long hair where the prince comes up and all that. So we know more or less that, you know, the prince and her kind of got along and then happy forever after. But when my dad bought, like, you know, this leather bound fairy tale book in French, so he was reading these stories to me like from regular children's book, and then he got like the French original something like original big, you know, like from the movies leather bound book, and he started reading like from French and translating, thinking maybe it's more interesting. And he read the same story where actually the prince fell from that tall tower window into the thorns, and he pierced his eyes and the blood came out and he stayed blind forever. And my father was kind of reading, I think, maybe we get back to the previous books, you know, because he like flipping through that, you know, everyone, the happy ever after was nowhere to be seen. They all ended like dead in the wall. Which means that was the sensibility of Middle Ages, you know. We didn't try to make things very pretty. Yet they are all encoded for those morals. And we'll see how even the watered down and sanitized versions of the stories are giving the baseline to relationships.
Yeah, it is interesting actually that we are discovering that those same stories have been evolving to reflect the current historical situation and current sensibilities of the humanity at the time. So yeah, when they were originally written, they had one public that is used to one level of crudeness. And then they have been sanitized for us and for our generation, which we carry the versions that we have read. And usually the versions that we have read actually ended up by a bunch of, you know, traps, tribes, tribulations, a hero's journey to get to the princess, get to the prince. And that's when it stopped and they lived happily ever after. So that happily ever after is the thing that we have inherited from these fairy tales, and this is somehow what we have built into our value system, that you know, all we need to do is go through the trials and tribulations and find this person and it's going to be happily ever after. We don't have to do anything anymore. Now everything is going to be amazing.
Well, that's for the guys, but the girl just has to be pretty, lay down and wait. That's all she has to do, you know,
So,
most of the time. And then the next thing is happily ever after.
Sleeping Beauty, can it be more direct? You have to just be beautiful and be asleep.
Yeah.
And the prince will come. Don't
And
say
and
anything,
very
don't
patient.
talk.
Very patient.
Don't express your opinions. You just sleep and be beautiful. That's it.
I have a gore version of what really was in that story, but I might save it from, because you cannot forget it. What happened to her while she was asleep. But anyways, you see, this is the first love story, because when we look at our parents, most of the time they were not like the most inspiring couple example that we could find. Yeah, so nobody really aspires to relationship as parents, except of course some very rare occasions where it's pure harmony and love. But these idealistic versions that were proposed in the stories actually unconsciously, and again unconsciously, set up the expectations of what relationship is about. So for the girl being pretty, otherwise, you know, prince would come, like a, you know, ugly sleeping girl, you know, okay, let her sleep. That's what he would say. But because she's so beautiful that he instantly falls in love, and and kisses her, like can't help but kiss her. I mean, who does that? That you see the sleeping person and you would instantly fall in love and instantly kiss her and then instantly marry her. So there's some steps like lacking. Like he doesn't know her. He doesn't know, maybe she has such a bad character and that's why she was put asleep. He doesn't know the reasons why she's asleep. And how would the life be with her after? Maybe she has really nasty character. But no, he straight away marries her and they live happy forever after.
So that kind of getting attracted by physical beauty, this has completely translated into the way how we enter the relationships, because most of the relationships are entered because of that physical attraction. And this had become almost like we don't even think about that. Oh, we are attracted by this person. So, okay, let's do something to get together. Nowadays, we don't have to marry them. We can get into like having sex with them immediately, which is why these guys are getting married, because at the time they had to first get married in order to actually merge physically. But the point is, what after? If we have connected with somebody based on their looks, then it's like super superficial. We have no idea what soul is underneath there, wearing this clothing of that physical body. And this is like one of the grossest mistakes that we habitually make for many years of our life before we know better and actually push this drive away in order that some more subtle characters of a person become apparent. So yeah, here we come to the number one in the line of the inherited values that we have taken from the fairy tales. It's like, act on your immediate physical attraction.
Mm-hmm. And for the girl to be pretty, to be picked up, and for the guy, to have to be like in attacking conqueror mood, to just pick up the girl and don't ask anything, And well, actually, it's interesting that princes presume that the girl is actually, okay with that. Like she wouldn't mind. I find you beautiful, I kiss you, and I take you to my palace. That's it. There was no like, are you interested? Maybe you want to stay with the dwarfs or something. So that's.
Can I take the dwarfs along?
Do you take the dwarfs along? So what about the evil stepmother? Where does she go? So it's there are many kind of unexplained zones, but what it ingrains and why we never question actually the reality of things. For example, Cinderella, she faked it. Like literally she faked it. She got like the makeup that she didn't have or couldn't afford. She got the clothes that was not hers. So she was by magic enhancing herself to look impressive.
She
and
turned the pumpkin into the carriage because she didn't have a carriage. So she was pretending to be the higher class than she is in order to be noticed. So it's like all kind of setting up the deceit. And it was kind of deemed okay. But in other movie we have, so this is projected onto the women as the actual way to act. Pretend that you are something that you're not in order to seduce the person that you would like to be with. But if we turn this around and remember the movie Talented Mr. Ripley, where the guy had faked to be somebody of a higher class, we see how awful and ridiculous it is when a man does that. So obviously this is not okay. But for a woman, okay, this is how you're supposed to act. Man needs to be a hero or a prince in order to conquer the girl. So notice these mappings that we are receiving from these fairy tales.
Yeah, they haven't been questioned because it's just the way it is, and it kind of looks good if we don't question the intermediate steps luckily we had Shrek who broke the rules and actually dragged the girl out of the bed, like shook her up, and she was like, "Oh, where's my kiss?" Put her on the shoulder and, you know, brought to the palace, and actually preferred the, you know, the green version of Princess. So it does evolve with time.
Let me just add one. When you say Shrek, I don't know about you guys, but admit whether you had a little bit of disappointment when the beautiful princess has formed herself into the Shrekette when she got more ugly than she was before. You know, it's a little bit of a heart-sinking feeling. We cannot help it because we were so strongly mapped to the other.
So,
Anyway,
so yeah. Shrek really kicked these concepts right where it should be. So, you know, given these mappings that are so subtle, so strong, and so present for relationships, because there's literally, you know, either our parents or the stories. That's it. You know, that's it for the models. And so as teenagers, when we start kind of getting attracted to the opposite polarity, what do? We project our imagination and you know, kind of try to feel how would it be if we had a relationship, what would we want? And, you know, the girls kind of talking together about, you know, how they would like things to be. So this is the crucial moment where the core, let's say, false love story is mapped out. So we write in that age, we write our love story based on, you know, whatever information we had so far, and it's a script that we write, and we attribute, you know, the guy, for example, a role, like how he has to look, what he has to say, what he has to do. And it's basically, you know, we consider that we are such a pearl that it's okay to be who we are, and, you know, we will be picked up, noticed for our like hidden beauty or obvious beauty. And then the forever after part presumes that once we are in relationship, it will just happen. Like this happiness is once we are in love, everything else is almost granted, you know, it will just happen. And without too many questions, and without including challenges, and more thinking of challenges like, okay, if there are challenges, it's not the right person. So this is basically, you can think back and you'll see how true this is for everyone establishing the secret line of expectations, to which unfortunately every partner will have to match. And then, you know, then we make adjustments to the script along the way when we see like, okay, it's not quite as I expected, but, you know, I can pull it here and there, I can compromise here and there. But basically the script is laid out, and it always has this expectation that we are, there's nothing wrong with us. It's always something with the other person.
Yeah.
But that's not what the relationship essence is for and about, because we have a specific purpose on getting together.
So a really specific purpose that we have in the relationships is omitted in all this romantic approach to what the partnerships are. And this is why we end up having amazing misjudgment and misconception. What is this even supposed to be? So we think based on this that we are supposed to be just, you know, if a man heroic and like, or a prince, if a woman just pretty and beautiful, and then we will get together, we will finally be noticed by another person, and then we will live happily ever after. So actually, relationships are not about this at all. What relationships are about is actually like that we are together in order to actually grow together spiritually and raise ourselves to the higher version of ourselves, highest possible version of ourselves, by helping each other go on these steps up. And when I say relationships, I mean also close friendships and all of these places where we are closely emotionally attached with someone, they are amazing mirror, amazing light post, amazing beam of light that beams onto the unseen dark sides of our personality that we can melt together and get them outside of ourselves. So, and that's what they do it through, is through triggers. So they will trigger us to actually feel uncomfortable. And by that, we will then see, oh, I'm uncomfortable for some reason. Let me look at that. Let me work on this. Let me melt it out and kind of conquer this aspect of myself. So a lot of tasks for relationships are to go through these things together and actually collaborate in releasing. So it's like relationships are work on ourselves, provided graciously by this other person who happens to put the light on the things that we need to look at. So when we say happily ever after, this means, okay, we are beginning our inner work. None of the fairy tales have even addressed any of the things that are supposed to happen after. So we don't even know. We think that we need to find the person that is okay with us how we are. Whereas if this were the case, that it means that we never need to actually progress in any way. We are fine as we are and we are comfortable. We will not actually work on ourselves anymore, because finally we have found someone who will tolerate all of our glitches and not say anything about it. So what we are unconsciously looking for is another mom. This is how mom used to be, because whatever we have been born with, whatever ailments, quirks, idiosyncrasies, mom will say, okay, it's my child and I love it, and I will just raise it how she or he happens to be. So unconsciously, we are looking again for parents and for this place where they have accepted us how we were. And this, so we are basically looking for being back at being 2 years old. This is before parents were actually starting to try to teach us that we are a separate person and not like absolute ruler of the world around us. So this is this interesting place where we have gotten it wrong, what the relationship is supposed to be about.
Mm-hmm. So let's get back to our Cinderella and let's see, what happens. They get married. And so now what's the next months or years of their life together? So basically the princess picked the most random girl out of nowhere. And this is his partner for life now. And she has not been really asked, but kind of straight
for life. Also, let's just make a note that it's supposed to be for life, ever after. Yeah, it's not supposed to ever end. Okay. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
So what do they do? She probably doesn't match the social standard of the court, because she knows how to cook and wash and scrub and make food, and well, Prince happens to not need it because there are people for that. So what she knew how to do the best is not even asked for. And he is, as a prince, probably, going left and right, going to, to do his hunting trips and gatherings. And so she might feel a bit abandoned and kind of, because she didn't know it will be like that. So what happens? They have two choices. Either they compromise and Cinderella says, okay, you are better here than where you were before. And so, just shut up and be quiet and use this opportunity to whatever, at least you don't have to work. So Cinderella can either compromise.
So romantic.
Well, yeah, because, if she finds out the guy that she married the guy that she doesn't know at all. So he might be like super egocentric and, rotten character and everything. And then she might be neurotic, hysterical, and wounded because, growing up in a family like Cinderella, who wouldn't be wounded? And they didn't have any kind of self-help books to heal. So she is for sure belittled and feeling attacked and, emotionally unstable. and he is entitled, he's prince, so he's egocentric, of course. So what is the possible scenarios? If they want to, they probably won't use, if they don't know that the relationship is supposed to be the spiritual growth for both, then she would get locked in her wounds and compromise, because now that's it, she's married, they have children, everything, she can't leave. So she would compromise, and he would probably have his way of coping with it. But relationship that is built on compromises can last, but it will not be fulfilling. So they would transmit again the wounded blueprint to their children, and that's how it goes on forever. Because the true happiness cannot just happen. The true happiness is profound understanding of what the other person actually represents for you. How is the universe talking through the other person? How can you use it to understand yourself? How in the field of the other person you can discover yourself? What can you learn about yourself? And it takes a lot of discernment, attention, and patience to discover yourself through the field that the other person offers. And plus, the difficulty here is to see the other person with real eyes, and not through the eyes of the script that we have written for the other person. Because the script with which we're waiting anyone to click in is matching, okay, he's ticking these boxes, but not ticking those boxes. And we're in constant kind of judgment, like percentage-wise, is he, how adapted is he to the role that I have designed for him in my life? Well, that doesn't work at all, because we miss on this opportunity. We completely miss, and it's not supposed to tick our boxes. It's supposed to be as revealing as possible. So when Cinderella would discover the nasty sides of her husband, if she wouldn't lock herself into kind of resentment and sacrifices and compromises, she would actually find a new way how she could exist outside of who she was before. So she would use the setting that the prince provides, and instead of taking it like he's egocentric, he only goes hunting, she would say, oh wow, he's giving me a lot of space so that I can read books, or I can do my crochet or something.
Yeah, this is maybe the right moment to also remind of criteria that we put on the relationship up front. Yeah, so we create that list. What should they fulfill, and what are the negative points that we don't ever want to bring into our lives? And the story about the prince and the sleeping beauty was reflecting what at those times were their criteria. For the sleeping beauty, the poor, no nobility woman, the only criteria was he needs to be a prince, he needs to be rich to get me materially out of my misery. And that's the only box that was ticked. And probably for prince, the box that was ticked is she needs to be pretty, and not from the court scheming and this super nasty court characters that are double scheming and double betraying, but some simple and beautiful woman that would be naive and a little bit innocent. So these were the archetypes then, and they have nothing to do with the archetypes here, where we have much more complex, first, much more freedom, second, much more financial freedom, and the possibility to reach it if we don't have it at the moment. And then the possibility of that spiritual growth is so much bigger that we have now than then. So that's why all that comes from these old stories is very much not matching what we are about these days. and where we can be. So it's totally all the past criteria that have nothing to do with our life anymore, but still we carry it within.
Yeah, yet when we examine, there's not one person that would say that they don't want fairy tale like relationship where everything just works, you know, without any kind of extra effort, so that love is just enough for everything.
Which actually, funny enough, it is, but if we accept the work part as being a gift and not being something we don't want.
Yeah, exactly. The only thing that blocks the progress of relationship and you know, like true bonding is dissatisfaction, because the dissatisfaction is something that cuts the ability to examine how is the other person our best opportunity at this moment for our personal growth, and you know, puts us in the trenches of I don't have what I expected, or I don't have what I need. So it really stops the progress. So any moment that we feel dissatisfied, and we're not only talking about the partner, it goes for any colleagues and any other people. When we feel dissatisfied with the other person, it's directly saying, I don't want to look at my, you know, garbage bin there. So it's easier to stay in this victim position, and that's also induced from the fairy tales, because if you see all those girls, they've been like super victims and bullied by the stepmothers and you know, and threatened and exploited in every possible way. So for women, staying in that victim position is kind of automatic and very easy. So if you manage to get through the dissatisfaction and dare to look at what the situation presents, it's yet another step that is conquered, and yet another kind of, you know, like a brick in building a solid foundation for the relationship that might last the whole lifetime. Yet it doesn't have to.
Yeah, this is an important point. It might last for the lifetime, yet it doesn't have to. So this forever, happily forever after is one of those things that we have accepted and adopted as our criteria. So what we want, the point that we want to make is that really to have an amazing relationships today, we have to look at which stories we are carrying inside and actually dissolve these stories, because they're absolutely completely like inappropriate compared to the miracles that the life can bring us in this moment. So what we are seeing is, you know, like there is this wonderful connection between two people, but then the questions come, oh, but is this going to last forever? Is he the right one? Is she the right one? You know, there are these little statements from my list. He needs to be the right one. She needs to be the right one. Is it going to be forever? Is he going to be a good father? Is she going to be a good mother? Like all of these questions are taking us from the beauty of the present moment. And we end up actually not being able to see the beauty of the real moment and allowing the universe to actually drive us towards what we are with this person here to do. We are not here to impose our story on them and to kind of forcefully, you know, bully them into driving that set of expectations that we have, although this is what is happening a lot. We are there to actually ride these waves together and really look back and see. It's not a question whether we're going to be together forever. It's more like, let's look back and see, oh my God, we have already been together for so long. We have only expected this moment. And when we look back, look, oh, it's been 10 years. Amazing. So that trying to predict the future is a huge source of misunderstanding.
Yeah, and actually this is what undermines relationships at the very beginning, because when we, when we fall in love, we don't question that much. It seems like everything is possible, but then, when kind of the the excitement uh, falls down a little bit, then this projection in the future, and this is very, very dangerous, because we have completely unrealistic and unprovable, ways to judge for the future. It's completely impossible to know if she's the one or if he's the one. We should maybe ask
And
the
it doesn't
question,
exist. First of
am
all,
I
the
ready
one
to
doesn't exist.
exactly. I would ask the question, is she is the one that I'm excited to discover myself with? Yeah. And if that's exciting enough, well, because of course we need to like the setting. Yeah, it's better to work in a beautiful setting than, if we have a choice. So it's more about whether I want to discover myself with and through this person, and let's see what magic unfolds, or I'm stopping this right here and right now because it doesn't match my future plans and expectations. And even though, everybody would say, no expectations, it's especially that, now it's kind of evil to think that you have expectations. Secretly check your small print with which you come when you meet a person. Like, really check your list of small print of what, and when we say unconditional and everything, nothing is unconditional, really. It's super, super conditional because of these unconscious expectations that we tag along for everything we do. So we expect people to be kind, right? And why not? It's much more pleasant to interact with kind people. But, how can we, what's our control over the level of kindness of other ones? So we make our choices based on our preferences, and that's fine, as long as we're aware of them. As long as we are aware of the list of the small print that we kind of silently present to the other person without ever saying it out loud. And then the other one just has to guess it, or we'll find out along the way what is your small print that you include and that comes with you in the relationship. So when we have the expectations, of course, if the person is interesting enough for us to hang around with, we're ready to compromise and to step out of our boxes and kind of rules and ways to meet the other one where usually it's not comfortable for us. And that's great. And here's the little nuance, because we can call it the sacrifice, like, the mermaid did. She sacrificed her legs, her voice, and her world because she lived under the water, because she was so willing to be with a prince that she thought, if only I could be in his world, he would love me, he would accept me. And this is a big error. And actually the usual result is that sacrifices don't pay, because you are not supposed to sacrifice anything. You're supposed to be open and curious and explore the other person's world without trying to change it. But if you have good suggestions on what's better in yours, show it. Show in which ways maybe your world has has interesting things, and let the person come into your world without forcing it on the top of the other one. So the sacrifices will compromises are not the same thing as acceptance. When we accept that the other one is the way he is, it's not the same thing as we compromise how we think it should be and just shut up and don't react on things that kind of like we don't like. Acceptance is providing, loosening our righteousness on how things
Loosening
should
the
be.
list, exactly. Mm-hmm.
Loosening the list.
Mm-hmm.
And then, when you take relationships at the core with this understanding that you are here to explore yourself and the world of the other, and the more different, the better, actually, because then you might visit places that you never knew existed within yourself. And that's, our case, where through these some big differences, actually, I have discovered things I would never imagine I would like, and ways of being and ways of doing that are completely out of my reach otherwise. So the important question in relationship comes how together we are more than just by ourselves. And if we're able to ask it and honestly answer, how are together we more than just by ourselves? And not just from practical point of view, but how his world is adding to mine, and how mine is adding to his, and how together we can create, the mix of both eventually. And if there's really nothing that adds in a couple, if really, if it's minuses, then there's serious question of understanding what, then what.
Mm-hmm.
Then it's really not exciting, really, to share the world.
So here we come to the point that our world together is either richer than each of us could ever have, or if not, well, then it's time to uncheck this happily ever after criteria and say, okay, well, it's time now that our paths are separating and not going together anymore. And there are a few really clear criteria that are showing whether the relationship is ready for dissolution or not. One criteria is being very clear about, well, yeah, we are not supposed to continue anymore, and there is this inner peace about it. Rather than, some hard emotions being stirred, that means that something has still not processed, but we are kind of trying to put it under the carpet. And the second one that I would like to share is a little bit funny one. If you are kind of thinking, oh, I'm kind of letting go, but she's going to be with other men and I'm going to really suffer. If you don't have this, but you have, say, oh, she's going to be with other men, poor guys. That's when you have really released, or, if she says, oh, he's going to be with other women, poor women, I feel for them. Then you know that, yes, the ties have been dissolved and pretty much there is no any more emotional pulls. It's maybe ready to be dissolved, really.
Mm-hmm. We have to remember that emotions are always 100% past. Yeah. So as long as there are emotions coming up between people, that means the past is not resolved. There's way too many resentments. The core topics have not been addressed. So it's never a good idea to separate through the emotional kind of slapping the door and the grandiose statements, never ever, and all that, because it doesn't serve anything. Well, it might be a little show for a moment, but as we are all kind of responsible people here, we don't have to. We can do it for fun if we understand that underneath that demonstrates our incapacity or unwillingness to really address our own corners. So the separation ideal field is really peaceful. Well, compassion for the next partner is a good one. And peaceful field, understanding that your worlds have grown too far apart to be ever bridged, and you're ready to explore new horizons, new colors. But if there are emotions of any kind, well, you don't want to drag it on into your next relationship, because they inevitably will transfer. and they won't show up at first, because of course you'll pick the partner that's the farthest possible from the bad one that you just left. Yeah, so you would pick as different as possible. Yet those who have followed our course, with little surprise, you you find again that you have 3 partners in a row that have exactly the same thing that you don't like about them. So we can't
Yeah, if
escape.
the previous
Usually,
one was a
yeah,
copy of your father, the next one will be a copy of your mother, and so forth. Father, mother, father, mother, father, mother, until we have released these things that we carry.
yeah. So changing the partner for the sake of refreshing the setting, is a good idea. But if ever you have a possibility to really resolve the emotions with the current one, it's going to be a completely new and different experience with the next relationship. And yeah, so this is one really important point when you are together. And another point is the black book. So we as humans, we have a very interesting tendency on keeping the book of hurts, a long book of hurts that
Yes.
we easily forget the beautiful memories, and they do come back when we're no longer with the person. Then we kind of are able to remember, yeah, there were also good times. But the book of hurts is what we have inherited from our primitive existence, where we had to remember the dangerous situations, the dangerous behaviors for the sake of self-preservation. So we no longer really need that. Well,
Yeah.
unless it's really for survival and avoiding like extremely dangerous relationships that will lead us to something. But then we need a psychotherapy first in that case, if we have history of abusive relationships.
I
Really
can talk to that book of hurts because I have had really first-hand experience with writing those for years. Actually, for years I have been very detailed in writing diaries, like what had happened for me in the days. I had piles and piles of diaries worth of like maybe 17, 18 years worth of scanned diaries. But when I would look back into them, I would see that mostly I had actually written about the things that were hurting and not really the ones that were positive. So when I have realized this, well, first, when I was leaving US, I burned all of these. And second, I have started actually on purpose writing only the positive things. And this is so, it has such a different effect, because it really depends. Out of the instinct for survival, we somehow manage to put more importance towards the things that have hurt us than the things that were amazing, because amazing things are normal. Yeah, we are supposed to have amazing life, but we are not supposed to be hurt. And this is really a conscious choice. What is the selective memory that we choose to have through any experience that we have, and especially about the relationship that we have? Are we going to write about the fights that we had, or we are going to remember to write about magical moments that we have? So what we have adopted for us in our relationship is to actually put every evening to say the gratitude and to list either out loud or through meditation all the amazing things that had happened and that we are grateful for this day, every day. And this makes sure that we actually pick the amazing moments out of the pile of experiences rather than negative ones. So something to really be careful about.
Yeah, and
Negative accent versus positive accent.
And to also say gratitude, like say thank you for this beautiful day together, because actually, given your personal experiences, you might remember that a beautiful day together in peace, love, and harmony, and joy and magic is not, such a common thing. So when you have one, it's very good to notice and to acknowledge. So the other reason why Book of Hearts exists in relationships is that, a couple is the fastest shortcut to enlightenment, really. And Damanur, they have understood this in community. So they make people live together in the same house, share the same bathroom, like, 4, 5, 6 people in a tight space, because they understand that it's a catalyzer. The other is the catalyzer for self kind of development. And, the relationship is, especially in polarity, so it could be a great catalyzer for enlightenment. And of course, the parts of us that don't want to move out of our conservative points of view will try to persuade us out of the relationship. So it's safe to say that more potent is the relationship, more inner resistance there is at some point. And we have spoken about the dark twin, so you're familiar with the concept of the dark twin that would do everything to bring you back into the entropy, into the nothingness, into non-progress, into non-life. And the dark twin is always there, and you can be sure that in every relationship there's a dark twin standing behind your back with a little black book and say, told you, you see, here it is, here is like it's not gonna go good, you're gonna get hurt, you don't want to get hurt, so get out while it's time. So the most potent the relationship, the more the dark twin is holding that threat of you're gonna get hurt, he's gonna abandon you, you've seen it before, and using all possible ways to distract you from actually staying fully present or suggesting those things. So it's very important to cultivate a neutral look at things and look at your relationship, the one that you have or the one that you don't have, but look from the neutral perspective. When you're quiet, peaceful, and not in the middle of trigger, look on a good day at your relationship and write down how does it look from a completely like a random neutral day, and keep it somewhere where you know, so that you can open it when the dark twin is rattling your emotions and suggesting things.
I want to point out that the dark twin is actually acting the most when the deepest dark aspects of ourselves are being revealed through the common work. So, and we know this, we know it even now in, somebody having the theory of how the world is, and all of a sudden you expose in yourself some really shameful aspect that you would rather abandon the other person than admit that you have it yourself. And imagine if your partner has seen you in such a pitiful, shameful light. The dark twin would certainly suggest break up this, because this is so shameful that you have been kind of witnessed in this type of existence. We would rather kind of pretend it's not there than that it's being exposed and actually worked on and eventually weeded out. So very important to keep that in mind.
Yeah, and that again comes from the fairy tales. As much as Cinderella wouldn't be wanted to be seen without her super outfit and makeup, the prince wouldn't want to be seen without his like sword and
being a coward, for example. Imagine if the prince had an aspect that is cowardly. He had never, for example, was never able to face some life challenge. Maybe, I don't know if it's something financial, or maybe, like building something, or, he's courageous in carefully selected ways of being courageous that work for him. But if a place in your actions is revealed where you act cowardly. This is for Prince super demeaning, and he would rather kill anyone who knows it rather than admit and actually work on that. And just reflect where in your life you have points like that, where you are being very shameful and hiding that aspect of you and not willing to even see it. And this is why relationships are gold, because at some point you will actually be exposed for the most shameful parts of yourself, which is amazing, because finally, if you see them, you can read them out, do something about it. If you're cowardly in some situations, well, you can just go and face 20 times that situation, and it will become another normal thing that you do. But it's such a stretch to actually admit to oneself that I can be cowardly in these situations, whereas I'm supposed to be a hero. This should be not a problem for me. So I'd rather abandon the person than see this. So check for yourself where you have this in your life.
And this is
Sometimes
also
impossible to even know before it's triggered, actually, before the moment that it's triggered.
exactly, as much as we have this strongly built pressure for ourselves, you know, being in that super outfit and with sword in the hand, we don't have any archetype that actually encourages this self-inquiry and like really looking at ourselves and our shortcomings and laughing about them. There is nothing of the sort until Shrek, because he was able to self-reflect and he found himself pretty, you know, handsome and scary enough. So I love how it really, you know, it's a new kind of archetype where we would be able to look at our shortcomings and say, yeah, you know what, I have actually, you know, I've lived with this fake personality for most of my life. Well, that's what it is. Luckily, I found out, and not to be ashamed to pivot. Yeah. So one of the best strategies in business, you know, when the business is sinking, is to be able to pivot. And when we know how to do that, we're not ashamed anymore or afraid that we will be exposed in our vulnerability. And unfortunately, I have to say that the techniques that I see coming up, they are encouraging more of stay in your power, stay who you are, keep your boundaries. So it's encouraging quite the opposite of being honest, brutally honest and vulnerable and ready to change. And we have to be very careful. What are those boundaries really protecting? Which parts of ourselves that we're not ready to let go or look at? And if we're not able to look at our shortcomings with humor, have a good laugh, and, you know, and even kind of bring them on purpose, that means that the personality has still a very, very strong hold over ourselves. And, you know, that's a choice. But if, how we presume here in this group, at least, we're all about self-inquiry, then this is a new thing maybe to learn, how to be brutally honest with oneself and learn, and, you know, and even caricature and exaggerate those parts of ourselves that we were so attached to, and, you know, like grabbing and clenching to them by all means. But that the moment we discover that it's completely ridiculous, how to also lovingly expose it and let it go.
And that goes also for the stories that are attached to that character that has just been revealed. It's literally, we are this walking person that is, as we go, slowly dissolving the inner personalities that are disempowering us and that are, you know, something that was appropriate before but not anymore. And on the other hand, constantly dissolving the stories and shoulds, so that we can completely stay in this neutral, welcoming, joyful, and welcoming place about the current experience and whatever the world might bring us. And to that end, I would like to kind of read what one of the Osho's things that he said. Not that I'm super kind of amazed by everything that Osho said, but this is one thing that is really kind of cool that reflects this that we're talking about. And he says, I have never planned my life, and I have loved the art of non-planning life. It has given me tremendous blissfulness because nothing disappoints me, and each day takes care of itself. I have left myself in the hands of existence. If it can manage millions of stars, millions of planets, millions of solar systems, I'm just an ordinary man. It can manage life for me too. So very much about giving that control to the universe itself and not really attaching to our stories how it should be. And to the same end, there is a little shorter one by Alan Watts saying the meaning of life is just to be alive. It is so plain and so obvious and so simple, and yet everybody rushes around in a great panic as if it were necessary to achieve something beyond themselves.
Yeah, in that perspective, relationships are and are not our choice. Like whoever comes our way is most probably a destiny, but then also the choice on how seriously we take it. And I have had in my life, for example, when the shortcut opportunity comes in the form of a person, I'm not ready, and then it takes another turn and another experience so that it's in a way set and not. It's half co-creating with the universe. The universe gives us the best possible trajectory, and it's up to us to fully embrace it or decline it and take it at some later time. So surrendering to whether you are in a relationship, not anymore, not yet, not currently, or full in, there is this touch of it's meant to be that way. And if we zoom through this possibility, it's meant to be, and why is it meant to be? Like, why am I exactly with this person, and for what reason? What's the goal for me in this situation? What's the goal of me being by myself? What's the goal in being with this particular human being? What's the goal on ending a relationship? Is it really ending, or is it ending to begin, or is it beginning? Like for every kind of situation, there's always this this higher reason, and if we can reach to that higher reason, understand, what's the plan of the universe with this particular person, with this particular situation, then we can find so many answers and so much peace in that little bit fatalistic point of view, as Vittoria just said, that if universe can manage galaxies and stars, like why it wouldn't give the best for ourselves? Of course, some might object, yeah, but abusive relationships and this, and where we have huge suffering. Well, abusive relationships show how much we have neglected the question so far, and how deep are the conditionments that we have began with, and it probably comes from the past life. So it's just that there's more work to be done, and they are in a specific category that needs to be addressed, like really with a profound work. But as for the couples that we see recently, that they are together with like full consciousness and both wanting to explore each other through the relationship, they are transforming the energies. And when they're finished with transforming their energies, they start transforming ancestors, collective, galactic, any kind of energy. So it's more or less a never-ending process, because a united couple is a magnet for, for all kind of misalignments to come through them, and to transform the situation through the polarity. So this is also the way how universe transforms energies on Earth. So we have to be mindful that it's not only about our personalities, it's about how are we channeling the higher kind of purpose through ourselves. And that's another aspect where we can really honor the relationship, and whoever can survive in them, to provide this opportunity for energies to be aligned and transformed wherever that couple goes.
Yeah, this is actually something to also pay attention. If the couple proves to be resilient and high in the level of light that they can kind of carry, which means is that they have dug deep into the level of darkness that they have already cleared, well then, if all of your personal story aspects have been cleared, then the collective aspects are coming on to be looked at and cleared through, kind of filtered through that system that we have. And it's a great thing to actually accept. It's really like a part of a mission, to accept the mission of clearing collective darkness through, experiencing it and letting it through. It is a beautiful part of the task that the couple can have. And if it comes your way, it's an honor to actually be able to do that service.
Yeah, and with the experience and kind of more of detachment, you see those moments coming, and they're always linked to some galactic events. And there's apparent conflict out of the blue and for no reason, but when you learn to discern what it is that is coming through and just take it as easy as possible, it's so much fun, because we can reduce the time of conflict, completely skip the phase of sulking and revenge, vengeful thoughts and all that, and we just do what we have to do. We have to find what is the topic of this energy burst and align what needs to be. So that's basically all there is. But because there's so much emotions and so much of these preconceptions that come along, fights kind of seem to be dramatic, and we would rather avoid. I guess at this stage we're no longer avoiding frictions, because we know that so many beautiful things open up later. When it's really resolved, we can clearly see that another level has been attained, and a higher vision opens for both.
Yeah, and we get faster in actually processing those dense emotions. Very much, like if it took the day or 3 days before, it's taking about 10 to 15 minutes these days. And it's, it's like a really powerful thing to kind of have a confidence that, well, whatever might come is going to be finished with in about 15 minutes. So then nothing can be truly terrible and unprocessable, so to say. Claudia, sorry, tip. You want to add, Debbie, before Claudia?
Yeah, I want to add that a good tip, if you find yourself in conflict, a good tip is to be able to see the slightest, good thing about it. Like in the moment that you hate your partner with passion, and think like, how did I ever, like ever this ever and never, I should never have, and how could I ever get myself into this? In that moment, if you can find something, like even the tiniest thing that you really love, tiniest, like, but I so love his smile, but but the toes, any little detail that you can kind of find that you really like, it's like the sun piercing through the clouds, and it's the beginning of the opportunity to kind of swim out of it and to minimize the the stormy effect. So always getting for through the appreciation, we actually shift frequencies. When we're in the fight, we are in this vengeful mode of oh, I'm not respected and all kinds of things. But when we find a tiniest little gratitude in the situation, we start raising the vibration. When we start raising vibration, we're out of the density of, we're out of the ring, So when you're out of the ring, you don't feel like punching anymore. You feel like, okay, let's be constructive and just look at it. So gratitude is what shifts the frequency out of the conflict. Claudia, you have a question.
Yeah. Yes, I have a question about losing touch with oneself when in company with other people. So it's important to me to always detach from a situation so I could be alone, so I can go in contact with myself. So it's becoming, I find it more and more people to be able to do their spiritual work or to be in touch with themselves. They need to be alone to be in touch with themselves. And I find that in a relationship, it's not, it doesn't match. We humans are made to be connected, to connect. They're made to be with each other. In this aspect, to need to be alone, to be able to connect to oneself, for me, it's becoming kind of a habit, too much of a habit. So the moment I'm in contact with someone, I enter a room, I talk with someone else, I really lose touch with myself, and then yada yada yada, the story plays itself, and then I need to pull back to be able to anchor. So I mean, beyond the whatever plays out in the relationship, I think the most important aspect for me is how to be in touch with myself on a daily basis and contact with others, which I immediately, when I enter a room, I see someone, my children, my husband, whatever, I immediately go into a state of maybe of detachment. I don't want to say anything else, but yeah. So for me, that sums it up, to be able to be anchored in my heart and my mind in whenever I am in relationship with others. And it seems to me that more and more people need to stand on their ground, be on their own. I need this. I have to be in contact with myself, and it seems to be more of the of the self instead of the relationship. So I wonder how to be in contact with oneself in a relationship, so we are actually our whole self presenting every time to others. I just find it really hard.
Yeah, it's a great question.
Yeah.
It's a great question. And then actually, really, we have to understand what type of vehicle you have. It's really about the energetic vehicle.
What's your design?
Yes. So there are people that have the energetic vehicle that is very resilient in kind of having this energetic boundary around themselves. And they don't necessarily, they can sleep in the same bed, but they're fully in their own energy, and kind of it doesn't leak, or it leaks very little and combines the energies very little. Whereas their energetic vehicles, our body, which is very kind of permeable, and as at the moment that you are connected, even have like the people in the same room, you start loading on their emotions and you feel them like fully, and it's not even always clear now which are mine and which are the other ones. And then it's like very much of a Piscean type of energetic vehicle. So then we need to find solitude to refilter out what had happened, if we have not developed the techniques to actually fortify this at will, which we can. So the first step would be, if this is how you perceive the world, well, then you allow for some moments of solitude to analyze what had happened, but with this idea and will to develop, because we are never really limited by the vehicle we have. It's just the beginning of a journey where we realize, okay, so I'm active, I have this type of natural vehicle, but I will learn through meditation and through different energetic work to have more control over this. And it could be even a fun challenge to see how good you are, in your work by, slowly progressing and not needing this. But of course, it's just for the fun of it, because why would we have to kind of stay with our limitations? We can always work our way out of them. But for the beginning, sure, if that's what you need at the starting point, well, then you need some time by yourself. Yeah, I'm sure that Tevye has something to add.
Exactly. I can add another dimension to it, because where it becomes, it shouldn't be a problem at all, but where it becomes a problem is when it's not kind of clearly understood or communicated between in the couple. So the one that needs giant amounts of time to process these things, and the other one who doesn't. So if it's not understood by both, and that's actually very useful to do, to understand each other's design, because when you understand that the other one just cannot filter all these things, they take it on and they're lost in everything and overwhelmed. But when it's overwhelming and too late, it might be perceived by the other one as that you are retrieving yourself without explaining the reasons, that they have done something bad, they have said something wrong. So it can be misunderstood by the partner. This needing the time alone part is usually misinterpreted by the partner if they don't know what about, because they don't have the same need. So actually understanding that this is the way it is and building it into the relationship as a clear understanding. So I know that Vittorio needs giant amounts of space and time and everything. So which I don't need because everything happens instantly. So instead of treating it as a rejection or some sort of, I don't know, where to place it or what to do with it, actually I can understand that, how can I turn it into my advantage? So maybe I'm having giant amounts of time off him. Yeah. So it depends on how the other one is able to look at this, which is kind of puzzling. And if you're able to communicate clearly and calmly, because sometimes this kind of desperate need for space can be it can come out with some dramatic statements. So being very clear, calm, and constructive about why you need space, and trying to tell also in kind of non-hurting ways, avoiding what's hurtful for others to hear is my space, my time, I need my air, you can say, I'll go and think, because it's in putting emphasis of my time, my space, actually somehow excludes the other. I don't know, it's subconscious or conscious, but rephrasing it can be actually very simple. And you say, okay, I'll go and process what I just learned, or let me take a day off so I can see clear. It sounds already very much different. Or let me go for 3 days to get some, nature vibe. There are many ways how you can phrase this need to be alone without kind of endangering the other and suggesting that they have been overwhelming or something like that. Yeah. And that's as long as you need that. And when you're saying I need to know myself and myself, so at some point you will get out of that myself into the realms where actually nothing can energetically impact, because you will be in the universal realm of non-duality in a way. But while on the way, you know what you need, and you kind of stand for it, but without aggressivity and without grabbing, but in a kind of making making it a normal space within your relationship.
Yeah, normal space and kind of matter of factly, because, you know, as long as you don't feel that, you know, your decision to do that is kind of somehow threatened by anyone else, but you're kind of calmly going about what you will do because, you know, that's what you want to do, then, you know, there is no unnecessary kind of emotional energy that is kind of around this issue. And this goes for any issue. It's like, if it still has emotional charge around it, it means that some aspect of it, it has not been forgiven or, you know, fully understood in our heart. So otherwise, you know, it wouldn't be triggering for either party. If it's triggering, we always can understand if in relationship there's something triggering, it means both or one of us, but it always means both have to see something about it that is not yet clear. Otherwise, it would be very, you know, calm and normal. So always we also take it as a gold because it points to something that needs to be seen.
Yeah.
So
I'm sure that Cinderella's prince needed giant amounts of time with his friends, and and Cinderella could feel abandoned, neglected.
the castle.
So for those, because that's our design, we cannot fight it and we cannot change it. So in a way, if that is your situation in a couple, you would kind of understand both that it's there, and then act on it very calmly and very constructively, and without any wounded connotations, because this is the number one that goes in the black book. This, you don't care about me, you abandon me, and all the statements. So we're trying to be very lucid about what's playing out there.
So Bella has the hands up, and then we see Vanita, you had your hand as well. So Bella, go ahead.
Yeah, I want to go back to the point that Evia brought up about, you know, when it's like we're kind of like a cabbage, right, in relationships. We unpack this like layer after layer after layer. And, you know, at some point you think like you've dealt with that issue enough, and it's like you've already aligned yourself and it's over, and then it comes up again in different lights. So I guess my question is really about like, where is the line where you think that, because in a way, like, are these conflicts, or sometimes it's not even conflicts, like it's just like the feelings, right, that come up. Where are they always beneficial? Or if, you know, is there like this, like you said, Evia, there's like maybe there's ancestral stuff that keeps coming up. Like, are you always to put yourself out there for these emotions to come up and deal with them and really process them? Is that because, you know, it's like I'm also comparing, like I've had different types of relationships where like there's no conflict at all, and then the relationship there's conflict is always present. So in a way, is from what you're saying, I get a sense that like maybe like conflict is actually could be a positive thing. You just have to detach from it in a sense and see it from the outside perspective and not get too tied into that. Or is it so it's not to seek this conflict-less relationship, it's to face the conflict, right? Am I on the right? I'm sort of lost because it's
yeah, you're getting it right, Bella. It's exactly that. Fairy tales suggest that there are no conflicts because they lived happily. Yeah, there are no conflicts. So our psyche doesn't accept, and of course nobody is looking forward to conflict. So we try to kind of conflicts together with death are somewhere and for someone else, unless they come in our life. And when they come, well, you have to accept that what is, yeah. So if it has come to your doorstep, well, you let it in. You let it in because this is your way out of it once and forever. So if you're there, and especially it's difficult when it's, you know, coming with aggressivity and, you know, those dramatic ways. But if you're there to look at it, what does it really mean? How can you manifested it? What in you attracted it? Like what kind of, maybe it's just your ancestors. You haven't done anything. You didn't call it in specifically. Maybe it's just ancestors. Maybe it's whole Armenia women screaming for,
Yeah, but it's
resolution.
important to understand there is no one else, just me. So you can not ever blame it in another person, because guess who had called this another person to your life? It was you.
Exactly.
And there was a reason why. And this is one thing. If there's one thing to say from this session, is there is only me. And those, like Sadhguru will say, the most successful relationship do you want spiritual growth, or you want to be comfortable and move nowhere? If you want spiritual growth, your best partner is the black devil. Get in the partnership with the devil, and he's going to trigger you so much that you're going to have a shortcutted way to actually clear everything out, because nobody can trigger you once there's nothing to be triggered. So as long as there's something triggering, that's gold, because it's your shortcut to do something. So these relationships where you were not challenged at all, this is likely somebody who is either too immature for you to even trigger anything, because you're so so higher in level from them than anything. But certainly it's like maybe a little bit like vacation time. And then we go back to work with a serious partner who will seriously trigger you, and you can look at it, because otherwise you're triggerless. Nobody can trigger you. It would be with anyone at all. And if you are in enough level of light, it's just, you would laugh at situations. It wouldn't be really seriously triggering.
It's funny, right? Because we perceive it completely differently, right? Like it's the opposite that the society makes us think. If we have a conflictless relationship, then you have found your soulmate, and then you're in the right place. And if you are having conflict, then it's the wrong person. Get out of there as quickly as possible.
Exactly. Hence the happy ever after concept. And this is what is ingrained, and we don't accept any other possibility. But I have a little disclaimer for this. Yeah, of course, it sounds like we're encouraging conflicts as spiritual growth. We are, but at the same time, there's this understanding that you have to be strong enough. You can only face and use the conflict as a constructive stepping stone if you have grown enough muscles. If you find that you're just not ready for that, or it's too early, you pass. Sometimes it's just not, sometimes you just can't, it's too much, or you don't have enough of inner resources to deal with it. So reaching out for help is a good idea, but sometimes, and this is actually, I will remind those who are not in relationships, sometimes who have never had partners, sometimes they don't have the partners just because if they did have, karmically, what it would bring to them would be so much more than they can handle, that it's better without, they would be kind of crushed and destroyed. Because if one person would represent all the lessons that they need to learn, it would be impossible to deal with. So you always have to measure your strengths and how ready are you to embrace the challenge. If you are like, bring it on, it's gonna be straight to the next level. If you don't feel like you can handle it, pass it and deal with it somehow on the side later, dig and examine, maybe,
But there is this rule of thumb that actually the universe will present you only these things that you can handle. So, if you are due to some rude awakening, maybe this kind of difficult work with someone is, like a better cards than having to face some physical ailment. So, it's always that estimating what is the universe really saying.
That's okay, Bella? Ready to
Yeah,
face?
that's perfect. That's perfect. I get a sense after doing all the courses with you guys, I got a sense that it's normal, but it's just like I always want reassurance, right? Like, because this stuff keeps coming up and it keeps going deeper and deeper. Sometimes you're like, is there ever an end to this, right?
Yeah, Bella, welcome to the reality.
Yeah. And sometimes you're like, well, maybe I haven't done the right work, but you have. It's just like you're getting to a different level of it, right? And it's
Exactly.
yeah. Thank you.
Okay. So
Yeah.
so to to kind of wrap up on this note, yes, here is where the reality versus fairy tale comes in, that we actually have to understand that, yeah, this is what it is. It's a beautiful mutual poking that brings us to the highest levels of our expression and will make it easier in short time. But also to remember that really the most important thing, the goal that the relationship can bring, is in the now, is in how can I cherish the moments with this person that I love today. Like, he might not be there tomorrow for whatever reason. He goes on with another person, dies, moves out, lockdown separates us. There are millions of reasons that why the person wouldn't be there next week. So bringing attention on what's the best thing you can do with the person, even for a day or two, even someone that you're in a relationship for a week, but how can you extract and nourish yourself with the goal that it actually brings, instead of focusing on black book and future projections and what might go wrong. And to be very careful to listen to how universe talks through the other person. What am I supposed to hear? What am I hearing? But am I really listening? Listening is such a key, because when you listen to a person, they also have a chance to show themselves. And as we said, we're dreaming of meeting someone who will see you for who you truly are. Well, those who see you who you are the ones who listen. So how about you become the one who listens to the other one, and listen the story about themselves, their world, and really deeply understand how is the universe talking to you through them.
Yeah, I want to share one more point that I feel is very important here. We talk about those triggers and how we deal with the triggers, and it's really important that we don't deal with them only in our mind, because if you understand that you have a trigger, it's really one thing, but energetically we have to actually melt in our energy body that like contraction that we get when we are triggered. And in mind plus body, if we are able to do this both at the same time, then we are really able to address the trigger in the right way. And there is a very simple technique, and it's based on that number 8. So imagine the number 8, which the center is in the heart, and then the upper 3 chakras are on the up part of the number 8, lower 3 chakras below. And like, imagine that this energy circulates around you, and that neutral 0 point is in your heart. So what you want is, when you have this trigger, when you understand that it's a trigger, you want that your body is at the same time completely relaxed when the trigger comes. This is actually physical purging of a trigger from your body. So you imagine that you are circulating your energy in the number 8, so connecting the upper world with the lower world. So this is like your divine aspect, and then below is your earthly aspect, and really kind of listening to the trigger, understanding this trigger, and doing this energetic exercise where you fully relax your body and you are at physical ease in the presence of this trigger. This is how you are working on it energetically as well as mentally, because only mentally is not enough to actually work on it. So what we want is that your body is completely relaxed in a beautiful, in a joyful state, as well as understanding the trigger. Then we have actually, then the light from the sun and from the divine source can actually purge it from our body. So that's a simple enough technique, but super efficient.
Voila. So the last thing to remember that there is only love and the rest is just stories. So
Yeah.
let's live love.
And
And,
Juanita, sorry we didn't get to your question. If you want, send us a little message on the Telegram group, and we'll be happy to answer that one. So yeah, sending you love. Thank you for being with us yet another time, and really enriching our lives with your amazing presences and hearts. It's such honor to be in your company. Thank you so much.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
remember, bye-bye Cinderella.
Thank you.
Bye bye,
Bye, Cinderella.
and
Yeah.
Little Mermaid.